Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our podcast, Your Gardening Questions from Plant Talk Radio. If you have a gardening question you'd like our host Fred Howard to answer, send him an email. The email address is fred@planttalkradio.com. Now for today's question.
And one of the things that we talked about before we came on air, I mentioned the pallor of pollen on my car from oak trees. Oak trees are in many people's forefront right now because there is, in fact, a disease called oak wilt. It has been found once that I know of in central Ohio, and once is way too much. But the announcements about it have been a little significant. And I want to say that we should be taking care of our trees. I think the better health they're in terms of fertilization and function, the better off they are. But let's not go into panic over oaks yet.
Chris, what do you think about the oak wilt? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's well. First, thanks for having me here. It was great it's always great to be here. And oaks are such a great species, a majestic tree, in the landscape, and you see that just typically that oak just towering over the landscape and a lot of other trees. 2 years ago, locally, they found it here in Worthington Hills, but that's the only confirmed place that they have found it in Central Ohio. We work closely with the Ohio Extension and the Ohio Plant Clinic, and they have yet to identify any other place with oak wilt in Central Ohio. The disease is kind of coming from the west, and locally with us, coming kind of more from the north. They've diagnosed it in Michigan, up in that area, but even northern Ohio hasn't seen it yet. So I think it's a big scare that we should be aware of, and we should definitely be cognizant of what it can do. But I think it's just more of a matter of time than really if. But I wouldn't say it's here yet.
Well, and that I find is good news, Chris. The fact is, it's a lethal disease, and it is all the way from California through into our area now. But I want people to be aware, just like Chris said. But I don't think we need to go into panic. And if we do anything, there are two things that are easy for everybody to do, well, unless you have a bad well, is to water your trees so they don't suffer from drought during the summertime, and for that matter, into winter on occasion, so that they have moist roots at all times. It takes care of freezing, etc. The root has to establish itself to hold the tree upright, all the things that roots do. But if you give them nutrition every once in a while. Now, Chris and I can talk about this at length. Various trees, various timing. But I think a tree should be fertilized between 3 and 5 years. And then as it ages, maybe even a little bit further spaced so that you just maintain health. But to be well watered when necessary, that Mother Nature hasn't delivered it, and to have adequate nutrients in the soil for growth, then the tree will fend for itself far better than if it's already, let's just say, maimed internally. Chris, what is your opinion on that?
No, definitely. I think that's definitely key for any tree. I mean, when we think about it, we think about trees and the amount of stresses that are on trees, and just the more stress that a tree is under, the more chances it's going to have with insects and diseases. A lot of times we look at trees and we look at borers killing trees, but really borers are there because there's other stresses on a tree that's causing the problem. So, anything we can do to maintain the health and just keep the trees healthy, the better those trees are going to be long term. And a lot of times when we're looking at stresses and health of trees, we're looking up and we're looking at the leaves. Those are going to help us determine if maybe there's issues. We can't forget that half of the trees down below that we can't see.
Hey, thanks again for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our other podcasts as well, the Plant of the Week podcast and the Plant Talk Radio podcast, all on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to sponsor a daily podcast, contact us at fred@planttalkradio.com. To find out more about Fred Howard and Plant Talk Radio, visit our website, planttalkradio.com.
Circle270media.com